Hello and welcome to Lords of the Sith. Today we'll be discussing how female sexuality is portrayed positively and negatively in the sequel trilogy. My name is Mary and I'm here with Denise.
So I think we can start talking a little bit about the Force Awakens, and there is you can look at it in a way that is a little bit awakening of the Force, which is a little bit like awakening of the sexuality, which can be for these people who are coming of age, especially for Rey and Kylo. What we have most about it, I would say, is in the interrogation scene. I'm not sure they handled it that well. They shouldn't have made her suffering, but they have the moment of connection and a moment of empowerment, right? So much empowerment that she can force trick the guard, the stormtrooper afterwards. And in the cliff, when they're exchanging the Force or whatever, the scene, I mean, he's pushing into her the Force and things. So there is a little bit of that, and I think it gets further developed in The Last Jedi. And Rian Johnson said he was inspired by that dynamic of the interrogation scene. So I guess the seed is in the Force Awakens, but it's gonna start being explored in The Last Jedi, right?
The seed of Skywalker lives, as it says in The Last Jedi. But going back quickly to The Force Awakens, what I really liked about it is, the reversal, because Rey is kind of like in a helpless damsel in distress position, and she totally turns it around on Kylo. And then later in the snow fight, one of my favorite scenes in the whole of Star Wars is when Rey gets the lightsaber, which is, it's a phallic image, and Kylo is not threatened by this at all. He's not threatened by her power, nor is he threatened by her gender or her femininity. He's just like completely awed by the fact that she gets his lightsaber over him. And I think that's such an empowering scene, in my opinion. It
is. And yeah, I forgot to say that I think the lightsaber in The Force Awakens is used very suggestively, right? Yeah. So, of course, he's happy when she gets the lightsaber. Come on. But, there's that force back when she sees Kylo and he's holding his lightsaber and it goes up. And it's in a strategic position. And also the idea that there's this young girl who goes to this dark place. She touches the lightsaber, gets scared, and runs away.
Yeah, I'm never touching that thing again, she says.
Oh, I'm never touching this again. And then she gets scared. And then later she takes it and wields it and in a way that is empowering. And also when she has that fight with Kylo, she buries his lightsaber in the sand, kind of saying, no, it's not going to be that way. I'm in control here. Like you said, right? She overpowers him. So it is used, I guess, in that sense. And also the fact that Kylo says, that lightsaber, it belongs to me. And then she holds it and then he gets happy. Yeah.
And smashed to the ground, but still happy about it.
Yes.
And then at the end of, The Force Awakens, when Rey goes to Acto, her coming of age story is kind of like shown in her outfits, especially in TLJ. But at the end of Force Awakens, her Acto outfit, I love that outfit. I think it's one of my favorites. I think it's my favorite of Rey's outfit. Her top is quite low cut. So that sort of like symbolizes the start of the transformation from girlhood to womanhood, and that kind of evolves in the Last Jedi, because her hair comes down from the 3 buns that she always had when she was a child, and it comes nice and long. And then of course with her other outfit, when she goes to the Supremacy, she's also wearing makeup, which also empathizes her beauty and her femininity.
Yeah, with The Last Jedi, it's quite interesting that we have this island that's where we have these nuns, right?
The space nuns.
Space nuns. So the idea, you have this idea of repressed, let's say, sexuality, if you think about nuns, right?
Yeah, she's basically a young sheltered virgin in a convent and studying a religion that preaches being celibate with no emotional attachments. Wouldn't you say so?
That's the thing. But then in that place, things start getting reversed when the milking scene, I still don't like it, but you know, you can see boobs in it, I guess. I think... I don't know if I said it. I think Ray also said, placed a bet. He's going to say, I'm going to put nipples in Star Wars. And they said, yeah, right. You're going to put male nipples. That doesn't count. No, I'm going to put female nipples in Star Wars. You just see it. And then he won the bet.
Well,
but you have the nipples there.
Well, technically, he did put male nipples in it. Because Ben Swallow.
I know. I know. But then maybe he said, I'm going to put male and female nipples. So we have female nipples in The Last Jedi. Not the way we want it. But even these nuns, I think this gets reversed with the deleted scene that they didn't put, that there was this man that were going to come and visit, and Rey thinks they're going to attack him, and that's not really the case. So this turns out that these nuns are not really virgin nuns, but we don't get it in the movie. But I think it's nice to get some insight on what was going on in terms of story, in terms of feeling about the Last Jedi.
I also want to add to that, that deleted scene kind of like shows how sexuality is kind of like freeing, I guess, because the space nuns are just going about their day, you know, cleaning rocks or whatever and gathering firewood, and the poor things look so bored. You got to feel sorry for them just living on that island doing nothing. But when Rey is kind of like, you know, very angsty, and she wants to get on with her training, and she's running towards this place where the space nuns are supposedly in danger, as Luke tells her, and she batters through the door, and yet there they are having a party, and she kind of like joins in a little bit, and so it kind of like shows how doing this sexuality is quite freeing for them, because they're there having fun and not doing nothing and getting bored and getting angry about it.
It's true. I think it also represents the idea that sexuality is always dangerous, especially male sexuality. When you're a woman, right? When you're a girl, sometimes it can be quite threatening and scary. So the idea of these dangerous men, I think, really fits in that mindset. And why she believed it so quickly and went there, like ready to save the nuns. And it was none of that. But it's quite interesting. I can see why they cut it in terms of pacing, but I think it was an interesting metaphor.
Yeah, and also it is a shame that it was cut, because it also kind of like empathized how the Jedi religion with being celibate and with no attachments was kind of wrong, because, you know, Luke said he would teach us 3 lessons, and of course that 3rd lesson was cut out, and it was to show that the Jedi were wrong in doing that, I guess, because there they are having fun and living their lives and not devoted to the Circle religion. But I guess that's a story for another day.
Yeah, I think, but I mean, I never thought that in the old trilogy that was the case, and I never thought that that was what Luke was going to follow, but we didn't get a lot of exploration about that, about being celibate, right? But I think the island is really interesting about that. And what else in The Last Jedi? Well,
carrying on with the space nuns, we have Rey, basically as the sheltered young virgin. Actually, no, I'll go back before we get to the famous smut hut scene. There was the dark side cave and the red hole. We all know what that's coded for, right?
Yeah, and there is something interesting that you have there, is that that cave is negative, and it's darkness, and there's the positive, which is the tree. It's a tree, you know, like it is a phallic symbol very clearly, and it's positive, and usually you code masculine positive, feminine negative, right? Yeah. So you have that, and then when I love that part when Luke talks about the Force, that it's light and dark and life and death, and it's so beautiful, and you have this idea of balance. So she's in that island with phallic tree and with the Ionic cave. I didn't know that word. Did you know that word?
No.
Ionic?
No.
Yeah, so it's referring to the opposite of phallic. Opposite. So you have that. It's a cave that it's with water inside. Yeah. Okay. But I think and it's interesting that for Luke, it seems like he says that it's negative, but for her, it's actually a learning experience. It's a good experience, and it's the moment when she becomes
a woman.
When her hair goes down, she becomes like grown up, right?
Yeah, that's what I like about it, because it's coded red, and basically I think but basically what I think, it's coded for rebirth, because Rey goes in, and instead of like it being like a dark side cave intending on seducing her to the dark side, it's actually not that at all. It instead of telling her what she wants, it tells her what she needs, which is her parents aren't coming back at all, and it possibly hints that her future is with Kylo in the mirror, because you just look at it, it looks like Rey and Kylo are walking towards her, and it hints towards Kylo being her equal, which I quite like. Again, showing that sexuality is a very positive thing, and the dark side bad boy isn't a thing to be afraid of, I guess. And then of course when she comes out, she's basically reborn and transitions from girlhood to womanhood.
Yeah, and also remember that Kylo's shirtless scene is right before, so basically she sees Kylo shirtless, and then goes to explore the hole, and well, like it is metaphorical, but it's quite serious. It really reflects that, right?
Well, it's quite metaphorical, because she suddenly gets curious about the opposite sex, I guess, because she sees him shirtless and she's like, oh, put a shirt on, but I secretly like it, so don't put a shirt on.
It's funny that there is another Force back scene before that where he gets his hands wet because she's in the rain, right? It's beautiful in a way. It's very cute because she's enjoying the rain, but he gets his hands wet. I actually forgot
about that scene, and I'm very annoyed with myself that I did. But yeah, the fact that he touches his face, especially his mouth, and then there's water on his hands, and he kind of like squelches it. We all know what that's a code for.
Yeah, again, it's just like, so there is this undertone of sexuality in their connection. However, it's positive. It's coded as positive, and that's what's so wonderful about the movie. You can hate everything about it. I know some people don't like it, but the act of portraying this sexuality and this feminine discovery as something positive is quite unique, I think.
Yeah, and also it's quite positive because it's metaphorically, of course, but it's portraying the female body as something that's positive. And in a lot of films, particularly blockbusters, because they are geared towards male audiences, which is fine, but it's quite a lot of the time female bodies are portrayed as negative, which is kind of really sad. So and then of course we come to the famous smut hut scene, where she is basically sneaking a boy into her room in a convent. But
I love the way it's about intimacy, and there is something almost childish about it, about discovery, and how it is a metaphor for sex, but not like sex. It's a beautiful emotional sex as connection, right?
It is. I mean, she's there crying, and he comforts her. And it's beautifully lit as well, as like this romantic scene by the fire, and he also puts like a blanket around her, which I find it very sweet. And she finds that there's nothing like threatening about it. It's quite awkward, as a real life kind of is, and that's what makes it very real, I think, and it's very sweet. And as we all know, Mark Hamill. Was it Mark Hamill who said it was basically a sex scene in Star Wars, or was it Rian Johnson?
Yeah. I think it was both of them, but I know Mark Hamill said it.
Yeah,
that it was.
He was pretty annoyed. He was pretty annoyed. I never got to touch a finger.
It's a pity. I wish he had. Well, not now. Well, that could be now.
There's always legends for you to read, Denise. He definitely touches a finger in that. My goodness.
Okay, but I think it's interesting. Going back to the hut scene, how they have the Force theme, and I think it's very. It means something good for their connection. It also refers back to the idea of the Force Awakens as this sexuality awakens, which I think is what Rian Johnson took, right? He basically took that idea from, and he developed what was in the Force Awakens, which was really nice.
I also really like the fact that, it's gone through the Force is life, life and death, but the joining of like these two young people coming together, the Force, if they had the chance, of course, knowing what we know from the Rise of Skywalker, but they could have continued, that line of the Force by, having children, because masculine and female sexuality does lead to life, which is another interesting thing, I guess.
Yes, it is, and it is because there is a part when Snoke says the seed of Skywalker. I forgot what he says. Now it's in the beginning.
The seed of Skywalker lives. The seed of
And then it shows Kylo. So I really feel that it suggested the idea that this seed of that was the seed of Skywalker that would produce more Skywalkers, right? But I guess no, which is a little sad. But it's very sad, actually. It's not a little. They finished the Skywalker science. It's a tragedy, but let's ignore it.
Oh, we can get that. We can get to that when we cover the Rise of Skywalker. Don't you worry. But then of course we'll move on to the throne room scene, where we've already mentioned that she's done her makeup up for Kylo before she jets herself to him. She looks very feminine. She's got the high boots on, which I love. She's got her hair long, which again she's preparing to go and meet the guy she fancies, and makes it, dolls herself up for him. It's great. And also that scene just before she goes into the finalizer, she kind of like looks at the saber and then kind of like gasps, or
I was gonna talk about lightsaber in detail because it's very well explored in this movie as well. Well, if you talk about it, you can use the lightsaber as a metaphor for Kylo himself or for Ben Solo, right? So Luke throws it away. By the way, the idea in The Rise of Skywalker, I'll earn your saber. Dude, he threw it away. I'm sorry, like if I find like a table on the sidewalk because somebody threw it away, and if I'm taking it home, it's freaking mine, same thing there. Anyway, so rant over. So Luke throws it away, but she picks it up and she holds on to it, right? And right before she goes to the supremacy, right? That's where she goes. She looks at it and she's holding it almost like a knight in that little escape pod that looks like a coffin. It can be like kind of like a Snow White coffin. Yeah. But there's also the idea of going into the underworld to rescue her beloved, which you can use that as well. But the lightsaber is there, and it's gonna be playing a part until the end. It's almost like as if when she goes to give Luke the lightsaber, it's not up to him to deal with that. It's her. She's the one who's gonna have to deal with Kylo and everything. So we have the lightsaber both as this representation of Ben Solo, and you can think about of her connection with him.
That's amazing, and she takes that lightsaber upon herself, and even takes it afterwards. At the end of The Last Jedi, even though she's annoyed with him and he's so sleeping on the couch, she's in that mode. Yeah. She still takes it, and it was like a foreshadowing before it all happened. I think she would forgive him.
It's beautiful, even though it's broken. She's holding on to the pieces, right? So it's broken, but it's gonna be mended, and I think it can be a symbol for Ben Solo, for their relationship, and it really works. It's just that it's something that was left in the Rise of Skywalker, because like I said, it works. The lightsaber as symbolizing something more works in the Force Awakens too. It works in the Last Jedi. It's just in the Rise of Skywalker that they dropped the ball.
They dropped the ball so hard. Anyway, on to the throne room scene. Kylo and Rey join together in a passionate fight in a red room where she grabs his thigh. Yoink, yoink.
Before that, she also grabs his lightsaber.
Oh, she does, yeah.
Right, yeah, she grabs his lightsaber. Ooh, it's the red lightsaber, which is not really. I guess it's Kylo's lightsaber, and she wants Ben Solo's lightsaber. Which, but yeah, I guess there is that in that the type grabbing, and there's that moment in the end where he punches a hole in the Praetorian Guard, and yeah, so I guess there is this metaphorical in that scene, which is very interesting.
Yeah, there's a reason why there was an article written called Why the Last Jedi is the sexiest Star Wars movie of all time. But with the lightsabers, with the red lightsaber and the light one, maybe it could be like hinted, it's just a little thing, but maybe it could be hinted like she's exploring like her sexuality, like one with Kylo Ren and then the other with Ben Solo, and she decides she wants Ben Solo. She says as much in The Rise of Skywalker.
It's very interesting how it's shown as something positive, right? And then just that this topic of this female sexuality kind of gets dropped in the end of The Last Jedi, which I like, because then we get the Luke part, but then it just comes up in the end when she has the broken lightsaber, and Ben Solo or Kylo Ren is kneeling broken as well, looking at her.
Yep, and then of course we move on to Rise of Skywalker. Oh.
I think, okay, so let me just start stating that I think Rise of Skywalker had a lot of changes, but there are some signs that JJ maybe was trying to follow up on Rian Johnson's footsteps. He said that Rian Johnson inspired him visually. I guess instead of doing beautiful red stuff, he just put the blue filter, but yeah. But so I think when you look at this movie, and there are like undertones as well, and lots of phallic symbols everywhere, I really feel that if The Last Jedi had the ionic, I don't know how to pronounce symbols, the holes, I think it's almost like he wanted to match with the phallic symbolism. But I guess the idea wasn't very well developed, right? But I would like to talk about the... can you talk about the phallic symbolism in The Rise of Skywalker?
Well, you can't get any more obvious than Klaud. I mean, look at that.
Klaud,
look at that.
Imagine, I was thinking, imagine.
It's okay, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just gonna come out and say it. It's an alien penis. That's what it is. Just look at it. And they replaced Rose with this character. Well, not replaced Rose, but they could have easily had Rose doing the mechanical stuff that he did, being on the Millennium Falcon with the air quotes trio. And yeah, that's what are you trying to say, JJ?
So you replace Rose with the
with the alien penis.
Yeah, but imagine if they made like action figures, Klaud action figures. Can you imagine that?
Oh my god!
Are they gonna make a battery with battery power, or I don't know. There are some possibilities. I'm wondering if they're thinking of going to a new market for merchandising, maybe. I don't know. But one thing that's interesting about Klaud is that he was in an early poster that was leaked. He was there. Rose was not there.
I remember that.
I was so angry.
Yeah.
I think he was cut. I think initially he's gonna be a bigger part of the movie. So basically, in this movie where we have Rey and she's kind of like in contact with Kylo, we have the spinnies all the time around them, right? So I guess it's a little, it lacks subtlety, but I think the idea is there. So I guess, I don't know, he was trying to communicate something, right, with this alien penis. Not very, very much like, I can't imagine an action figure of that thing. And imagine somebody gives a kid an action figure of Klaud.
I don't want to imagine that.
This is horrible. But anyways, so this is one thing. And speaking of phallic symbols, in the poster for the Rise of Skywalker, we have that big cannon, which is in a, look at the angle. And underneath the cannon, there's kind of like this little ball with plants that kind of looks like hair. So I find that it's very, very, very phallic and very on the nose. But I just find that maybe they're trying to match The Last Jedi, or I don't think there was a real conclusion to that, or maybe it was part of the earlier The Rise of Skywalker was more focused on Rey and Kylo, right, about the dyad, about things like that. So maybe it was that, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, you even had I don't know whether this means anything, but you even had the Oracle. There was a scene like very early on in the leaks where the Oracle talked about Rey and Kylo, Kylo's love for Rey, and this thing is kind of like sitting on a baby's head, which I don't know whether that means something. And then, of course, later on in Rise of Skywalker, you have that scene on Parsana where Rey takes a shine to those alien children. She's there smiling at them and is really curious about them. And then she gets a necklace from one of the aliens. I'm sorry, I can't remember what it's called, but what they're called. But she gets a necklace and gets asked about her family, and then she says she has no family. And then later on, Kylo snatches it from her. Now, I think in some cultures you can get like what's called a fertility necklace. So that's that's basically kind of foreshadowing that Rey was gonna start a family with Kylo. She's curious with the children. She has the necklace. She gets asked about family, and then he takes that necklace from her. But of course, it could have foreshadowed them coupling their relationship and continuing the Force line. But of course, that doesn't happen.
Which is it's weird, right? It's just weird that they would hint at this direction, not close it, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, if they were going to have Ben dying, the whole movie should have been different, not being hinting at that and not having them fighting all the time, right? But in the first Force Bond in Pasaana, it's very interesting. If you go and look at some screenshots, I'm not gonna ask you guys to watch the movie. If you look at her, Rey, right behind her, there's this little tower that's cylindric with a round dome. It's pretty much a phallic symbol. It's right behind her, and Kylo is standing by a table with a collection of phallic symbols. There's these whole tubes. I don't know if he has a collection, and I don't know what he's going to do with that. And so it's their first Force Bond, and you have very prominent objects in the scene that are basically phallic symbols. So I think maybe the idea in the beginning could have been, if the idea was really to go on about the dyad, and when you have Rey and Kylo fighting, it's not about her being a Palpatine, but about their dyad. It would be about her fear of this connection, that it's bad, right? So I guess in a way, having these phallic symbols around shows like her fear, this threatening sexuality that she's not ready to embrace because she thinks it's negative. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do, yeah. Which is kind of, in my opinion, like, it's maybe a little bit redundant because she became so confident in her sexuality in The Last Jedi. So unless being wrong about Kylo made her unconfident, maybe, because she couldn't convince him to come back. So
I think they made Kylo go back to the Force Awakens personality, and he's more threatening and aggressive, and he's back to a threatening monster, right? The idea of monster husband, it has always been in fairy tales and stuff, and it symbolizes this fear of connection, fear of sexuality. So he's masked, he's more monstrous, he's more aggressive, he's more evil. So I guess it really does not really follow very well The Last Jedi. I agree with you.
No, it doesn't. And then, of course, you have, oh my god, Rey's costume. We spoke about the costume in The Last Jedi, how it transitioned from girlhood to womanhood. Okay, so when the first images of Rey's costume first came out, we all thought it was, because of the whiteness, we all thought that it was hinting at Rey being a bride, which could have worked with the fairy tale leanings, with going off with the prince and becoming the bride, after the prince has been lifted from his dark curse, because again, fairy tales, they're full of sexual symbolism, let's be honest. Her costume in the Rise of Skywalker, along with the Force Awakens hairstyle, regresses her to a pure virgin who follows the celibate teachings of the Jedi Order, and the ending of this movie in that costume, with her childhood hairstyle, on Tatooine, on basically another desert planet where she grew up. She just went from a desert planet to another desert planet. She's basically alone, and she's turned into a space nun, forbidden from any sexual desires. I can't stand it. Of all the endings to choose for Rey, and that, like I said, her costume, with her being a Jedi, alone on Tatooine, on a desert planet, I'm sorry, that is the symbolism that stayed with me. A pure virgin who follows a celibate religion, basically, and she's basically gone to her own little convent to be a space nun forever.
Yeah, I know that people who like that ending or who don't mind that ending say that, oh, but she's not gonna live there. But movies are visual and symbolic, and her alone in this place that's barren, right? I know it was a farm before, but it's not being farmed right now. It doesn't symbolize anything good, and she's alone with that, burying that thing. Yeah.
BB, it was horrible. If it basically said to me that young girls cannot have desires. They cannot have their, I've said this before, they cannot have their redeemed villain boyfriend, or heroines can't in their stories, even if they've gone through all this way to redeem the villain. The villain has come to her side and wants to be with her, but no, they basically say, oh, the heroine has to be the pure virgin forever, because female sexuality bad. Heroines getting with boys bad. No, she has to be a strong, independent woman who can only have platonic friendships. Otherwise, she's not a strong, independent heroine.
Yeah, I think they were sort of influenced by superhero movies and things that don't really make sense in the context. I find that they dropped the ball. Like we were saying, we have this symbolism, right? The phallic symbolism, the penis. You have that, and you had that in Force Awakens, and why suddenly it goes back to her being alone, right? But before that, we have Dark Rey, right? And by the way, when they are fighting in that. So am I forgetting the name? In the Death Star ruins, there's a lot of phallic symbolisms as well. There's that cannon behind her, which is a ball of a cannon. It's everywhere. I cannot point everything, but if you ever watch this movie and if you look, it's like everywhere there are phallic symbols. And maybe it's just like to again show that no, this movie is masculine. Maybe something unconscious. But what do you think about Dark Rey?
Well, I think it's obviously saying it kind of like juxtaposes the dark side cave in The Last Jedi, because that wasn't threatening. You thought it was threatening, but then Rey goes into it and finds, oh, it's not something to be feared. It's actually part of growing up, and it's what she needs, even if she doesn't want it. It's what she needs, and she comes out. As a woman, it's basically, like we've said, it's basically her being, symbolizing that she's grown up. Dark Rey, in my opinion, symbolizes that female, sexuality, especially, women being seductive, is bad, because even though Dark Rey is fully covered, she looks, she kind of looks a little bit sexy. That the dress, covers her, the dress shows her figure. But then you know, she hisses those ridiculous shark teeth at Good Ray. And again, that's basically like symbolizing for me that female sexuality is bad. Exploring your desires is bad. You can say that, you know, they tried to like, you know, say, oh, it's because she's a Palpatine, she's afraid of, you know, going to the dark side like her grandfather. But it's just, like we've said, it's the symbolism, you know, behind this. I mean, I remember you saying in a previous episode when the D23 trailer came out with the double-ended lightsaber, she kind of like, you know, flips it open, and it's kind of like, you know, leg spreading, I guess. And again, that it's just shown as bad and something to fear, and I don't like it.
Well, I think Dark Ray, she is sexy, definitely, the way she smiles and she's confident and she's don't be afraid of who you are. So I think it definitely hints at sexuality. There's also the lightsaber, right? Because you have this, it can be kind of like a vulva, you can maybe think about it. So it's definitely about female sexuality and this dark side, which in the movie it ends up in a message that it's something to be rejected, to be, she's pure because she goes, after that she goes to Luke, it's like, no, you rejected it, so you're good, you know, you're a good girl because you rejected it, which is a horrible message. You can't really reject it.
It's a horrible message.
If okay, let's just try to give it a very, very generous interpretation, right? Let's give it a generous interpretation. If we think about the movie as it was probably...
No, I don't want to give it a generous interpretation. I'm just saying
what they might have aimed with it, okay? So basically, if the idea in the beginning was to have this dyad and to have her conflict and her anger at Kylo be her fear that, you know, being attracted to him is wrong, or that she's bad because she's attracted to him. That's very interesting. That's kind of something that can resonate. And then if you think about Dark Ray, not as something necessarily evil, but as her seeing her desires as something dangerous, it's so much so that right after she sees Rey, she meets Kylo right then, right? So it is related to that. But for it to make sense, you know, she integrates it in the end when she gets together with Ben. But you know, but then when they're pulled apart, it seems that it's not so good. So you keep Dark Ray as something to be rejected. That, like you're saying, is it's not a good message.
No, and you know what I've just realised? When she goes to Acto, back to the you know, the space convent, she has her hood up over her hair. She's gone back to the space convent to because she's afraid of confronting her sexuality, which is just, you know,
which I think is not necessarily bad if we're going to work about the fear of sexuality and then resolve it in a way that's positive. Let's remember that this scene of her going to Act 2 and her talk with Luke is a reshoot. It came in very late in the production. So we don't know what was there before and what it meant.
I think that hood is CGI anyway.
I don't know. But the whole thing with Luke is a reshoot. And that scene of her, maybe she went there before to do something, but it's a reshoot, so it's something that they put later. I think the movie, I think that there was something kind of decent for a movie, and then they started changing and it became completely pointless. So, but I agree with you that when she goes there with this hood, it's like, I'm rejecting this, I don't want it. And then she's rejecting her womanhood, exactly. Basically, because I was going to say she left Acto as a woman with her hair long down, and then she came back to cover it up again. When she exactly. So when she talks to Luke, he never says to her what he said. Remember in The Last Jedi, there's dark and light. Basically what he says is like, no, you're good because you rejected it, right? So basically the idea that later the Jedi are going to come to her, she's going to get the Skywalker name, and she's going to be loved by Leia is because she rejected it. She's being the good girl. So that's very creepy stuff.
It's just very creepy, like you said, because it's just, you know, she's basically put on this pedestal saying, oh, you can't be bad, you have to be good, and if you're bad, then you know, you're not worthy. There's no forgiveness. It's just, for a Star Wars movie, that is just a horrible message to send, especially to women, because I think, you know, women are treated a bit more harshly than men when they get things wrong, and there's always like, even like with a lot of like blockbusters now, you know, the woman always has to be, you know, kind of like get everything right, otherwise she's not worthy. Yeah,
usually, like, in terms of sexuality, women are still looked poorly upon, right? If a woman is very sexually active, it's something that's bad. If a woman is youngish, and, you know, like, she shouldn't, and she has to avoid it, otherwise she's a bad woman. So I think it's still seen like that. But I still think that maybe this wasn't the intention of this movie. And there's another scene that I wanted to talk about, which is the snake in a cave. Do you get it?
Yes, I get it.
Snake in a cave, right? So there.
I'm just a lonely space snake.
The idea of the that's a scene that I think it's foreshadowing, and it's foreshadowing something completely different than what we get. So that's why it's a mismatch. Either they didn't know how to write, or it was a reshoot that didn't make sense. I don't know. But the idea is that you have this killer monster, which is the snake. And you see the skeletons, right? It killed a lot of people. And Rey heals it. She touches it, and her touch heals it. So I feel it's like healing the monster, which is, in a way, a metaphor for Kylo or Ben, right? And if you think about the idea of a snake in a cave, it still goes back to the idea of phallic symbolism, sexuality, her desires, but it's in a way that's actually positive here.
Yeah, I guess it's one of the few positive things in the movie where, you know, female sexuality is portrayed as being positive, because, you know, she's able to heal. But then, you know, at the end of, you know, it kind of like maybe foreshadows that, you know, she would save Ben. Metaphorically with her sexuality as well, but of course that kind of, you know, he dies anyway, and it kind of like shows that you know, healing again is part of being a space nun, because you know,
she heals him, but she doesn't get him, right? So it's heal and abandon, because getting and being with him would kind of make her less pure. That's the idea that we get in the movie, right? Whether they intended it or not.
I'm of the opinion that they kind of did, because
I think they had no clue what they were doing.
Regardless of this is the message that they sent. This is the message that they gave with that movie.
Yeah, one thing that's not related to this that I just recently realized is that when they talk about Kylo making a sacrifice, it's okay if he died with a big sacrifice, but for a sacrifice to work, the person needs to know that they're making the sacrifice. And in no moment is it hinted at, is it foreshadowed, right? With The Last Jedi, if Luke, he says, oh, if you came here, the effort would kill you. But for that, we saw Rey healing a big snake, we saw her healing Kylo, and she didn't die. But then with him, he died. So it's very jarring, because we don't see it as a choice. I'm going to make this sacrifice and give my life for her, which would make some sense, but no, it's just like boom, it disappears. It's very strange. Yeah,
it's very strange. Also, I kind of like want to touch up on the Colin Trevorrow version of episode 9, where Rey, you know, it was the same, except it's kind of like a little bit worse, because Rey is basically another Luke. Okay, you know, and again, it's her, you know, she wants Kylo to be redeemed in that version. You know, I'll quote you, Denise. She believes that he can turn good, and he doesn't turn good, and that's basically like her feelings for you know, the dark side boy. Again, you know, she's punished for it, because, you know, he doesn't turn good in that, and I think he's even like, you know, he even injures her at one point in that script. Oh, it's just awful. And again, it just shows that she has to be like the celibate heroine, and also she kind of like gets with Poe in that version, which kind of like, no offense to like Damn Ray, but it kind of like felt to me that, again, the heroine wasn't allowed to redeem the bad boy. She has to settle for the quote-unquote nice guy, or be, you know, like, as the celibate pure heroine, which is what we got in this version. And neither of which I don't like as a message.
Yeah, I find that men sometimes have trouble writing these things, writing women, right? Rian Johnson really did a wonderful job of that, doing this female awakening of sexuality. But I guess Terrio and Colin Trevorrow weren't able to do it in a way that was nice. I find that this idea that the bad guy is a bad temptation, women need to learn a lesson, I think it comes from guys who are going to feel that the bad guy, for them, it represents the competition, the guy who's confident, who's, you know, the competition, and he's a nice guy. He's not like those guys who get these girls. He's nice, but he's ignored. So the movie kind of makes a way to say, look, women, don't go for these other guys, settle for me, you know, the nice guy, which I find it's a little sad, because it should have some, you know, like even if you're making a movie for a man, you want your protagonist to have some evolution, even to get the girl, right? Not just get the girl because she oh, you're nice, you know?
Yeah, I think it's more of like, I think Colin Trevorrow kind of like, I don't think he liked Finn that much, especially as Finn has his own story arc. And credit where credit is due, I really do like Finn and Rose's arc in Colin Trevorrow's script.
Me too, yeah.
So he couldn't obviously use Finn, and the next guy is Poe, and I think he kind of like saw himself in Poe as the cool, handsome action hero, kind of similar to Chris Pratt in Jurassic World. And Rian Johnson even said that Colin Trevorrow requested that scene for Rey and Poe to meet at the end of The Last Jedi, which makes sense because, you know, she's the protagonist and he is a major supporting character, but that is why he wanted them to meet, so he could like set up this kind of like really rushed romance between them, because he like I said, I think he saw himself in Poe and wanted him to get the girl, which you know, okay, it's fine, but what I really find annoying about it is the girl has to settle for the nice guy, while the man can easily get the badass, you know, evil chick who he redeemed. Case in point, Luke and Mara Jade. And I find that a little bit, it's not a nice message to send. It's really hypocritical.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think getting with Poe is settling for less. and the only positive thing I can say about that is at least he gives her a love interest, right? She doesn't end up alone. Yeah. So there is a positive in that.
That is very true.
So, but it's just that everything that was done symbolically, it kind of forgets what was done symbolically in The Last Jedi and their whole connection. So in that sense, The Rise of Skywalker is better because they still have the connection, and the movie is mostly about Rey and Kylo's connection. Although when they put that Rey Palpatine there, it kind of started getting crazy. But I find that it's in a way it's better. It really it works better with that.
Yeah, it was thrown out the window in Colin Trevorrow's script, because you saw that concept art. Rey is basically wearing Luke's exact Return of the Jedi costume in one of the concept arts, and I'm just like, oh my god. So basically,
I prefer that than her white outfit.
I think it's just as bad personally, because it just shows that she has to be, you know, follow masculine traits, because femininity is bad. Mm-hmm. Not that they did a better job in Rise of Skywalker, but the argument's there.
Yeah, I think
poor Rey, she really got screwed over at the end of this trilogy.
Oh my god, yes, I agree, and I think that they didn't really think about her as a character, what she wants, and rather think about her as what she represents. And that's when you're writing with the male gaze, in that, you know, that it's this cute, perfect thing to be admired, right? Not a human being with desires, with issues. Her desires are pretty much ignored, right? She wanted the family. She didn't want ghosts. She never said she wanted a last name. She never said she wanted to visit Tatooine, or she knew it, you know. So basically, everything that she wants doesn't matter, because they're just thinking about what she represents, or what she looks like, or what message she's going to send for little girls, which is not a good message, by the way. You know, you can't ignore. If you ignore your sexuality, it's gonna come and right. As far as I know, sometimes people have problems with it, like, you know, like. Teenagers are the ones who are most repressed and don't talk about it, and sometimes they're gonna have problems because it just comes and poof, they don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah, it's really harsh, and again, it just oh wow, it just says that, you know, female sexuality is bad and forbidden. I know I keep repeating this, but I've never been. Yeah, let's just say I was like really offended by what Rise of Skywalker did by subtly, you know, suggesting these messages. Like you said, they might not have intended it, but it's there.
It's there. I don't think they intended it, because they had no clue what they were doing.
Another thing I want to like bring up is maybe like maybe some people, like, I don't know, maybe they see, like, you know, their daughter in Rey, or a role model for their daughter, and that's why they like prefer like this pure virginal kind of like woman, or getting with the nice guy like Poe, because you know, they're kind of like maybe like a little bit afraid for their daughter, but you know, at the end of the day, Kylo is the one who is utterly and completely respectful of Rey and her gender and her power. So just because, you know, he's the best guy for her, I guess.
And she wants him, right? And regardless of anything. She says in The Rise of Skywalker, at least she says it, which is, I guess, one point for it. So if that's what she wants, and that's the thing. When you talk about male heroes, they get what they want. When you talk about female heroes, instead of thinking about what they want, you start thinking about what message they're gonna send, what they represent, which is a little complicated.
That's my problem with this, and it really needs to end, I think, because I'm getting, personally, for me, I'm getting sick of heroines being held on this pedestal. Oh, they have to be perfect. Oh, they can't have romances because it makes them weak. They have to be strong and independent. And I'm like, what about wants? What about needs? You know, what about desires? What about what makes them human? Not some standards that they have to aspire to. Whereas the male heroine, the hero can get whatever he wants. It really grinds my gears, I'll say.
Yeah, I find that it's because of male writers who can't really identify with, and I don't understand why they can't just identify with the female character and write, you know, like, because human emotions are very similar. So I find if they were to try to think from her point of view, the story would be different, even if their own ideas, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I absolutely do. Well, hopefully, you know, that's what hurts a lot about Rise of Skywalker, because I thought, you know, Rey would be would be the heroine that you know, she would be the heroine where she isn't held on a pedestal and has to be perfect and strong and independent with no man. You know, she and The Last Jedi, certainly, you know, I certainly thought that she'd you know, have, you know, she would be allowed to have her desires and, you know, her fears, which, okay, I guess she had a little bit of fear in the Rise of Skywalker, but for the wrong reasons, and you know, get her redeemed villain love interest, and sadly that wasn't the case.
Yeah, it was sad, but maybe there was a different movie there. I mean, we can't really think about what could have been, but I don't know. I mean,
this is what we got.
Yeah, this is what we got, and like, you see, there is the if you look at the movie, there is the idea of something in dialogue with The Last Jedi, something about sexuality and sexual desires. It is there in a way, but it doesn't get resolved in a way that's positive. If it gets resolved in a way that's no, I'm not getting anywhere near that, which for coming of age story, it's not good.
Well guys, we hope you really enjoyed our look at sexuality in the sequel trilogy. Please let us know your thoughts in the comments, and do subscribe, it helps us a lot. And if you like our stuff, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, SoundCloud, and iTunes. Until next time, may the Force be with you.